I know. You asked for it. Just do the last.
Okay, we're gonna start in a few minutes. Again, I know we've said this before, but anybody who would like to speak tonight, please fill out a yellow card, and you'll be called in order and give them to Robin up at the front desk here, and we'll get started in a few minutes. Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'd like to call the June 4th special called meeting of the Milton Planning Commission to order. This is a special called meeting of the Milton Planning Commission. My name is Kurt Nolte, and this is a 7-member commission appointed by the City of Milton Mayor and City Council, created for the purpose of holding public hearings and making recommendations on zoning, use permits, concurrent variation applications, comprehensive land use plan, and plan map, and other related plans and amendments to the zoning ordinance. In attendance tonight, we have Commissioner Trey James, Commissioner Fred Edwards, Commissioner Sumit Shuma, yeah, him too, yes. And then we will be joined shortly by Commissioner Judy Bird. She's just finishing up her tour over at the library on the voting. She's walking in here, well, here she comes, as a matter of fact. So we do have a quorum for this body. Absent tonight is Commissioner Vic Jones and Commissioner Brian McNeese. There's one item on tonight's agenda, the consideration of a preliminary plat. The Planning Commission is tasked by the city's subdivision ordinance to conduct a public hearing to propose preliminary plats that have been found to be complete by the Community Development Department. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning Commission is required to review the proposed preliminary plat, provide comments, and make recommendations regarding the plat to the Community Development Director. The Planning Commission does not approve or reject the proposed preliminary plat, but merely provides comments and recommendations based upon the public hearing and the Planning Commission's view of the proposed preliminary plat. Then I'll turn this over to Judy.
Great. My apologies for my delay. It's election season and the polls closed at 6, so that's the earliest I could get off. On the agenda tonight is the preliminary plat, 265 5-acre road and parcel ID 22-523 0075 90131 by Epic Design and Build LLC. The zoning is T4 permissive, 5-acre road zone, Deerfield form-based code. The request is to subdivide 3.87 acres into 20 units of townhomes at a density of no more than 10,000 square feet per acre. This item was first presented at the April 23rd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting, where it was postponed for a second public hearing, which is being held tonight. I would like to call upon the zoning manager for the City of Milton, Robin McDonald, to provide any updates.
Birds, I just wanted, and I still needed to continue my recusal
Okay.
from the first
I'm
meeting.
glad I got here in time.
See you.
Thank goodness, we have a quorum. Yes. Okay. Good evening, planning commissioners. As was stated in the introduction, this item was deferred from the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting, allowing additional time for the applicant to consider the issues raised at the meeting and to modify their plan in response to public comments. During the time between the April 23rd meeting and now, staff confirmed that there was an error in the survey which affects project density. Staff also received an opinion from the city attorney's office that since the proposed plat requires a warrant for front entry garages, the application violates the moratorium placed on, or actually it was continued on February 3rd, 2025, which stipulates that only by right developments are allowed and plans with any kind of special approvals cannot be accepted. So with that, that is the staff's report for tonight.
Does the commission have any questions for staff?
Nope.
Okay. We will now hear from the applicant for 265 5 Acre Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ethan Underwood. I'm a land use attorney with the firm of Underwood Scoggins, and we are representing the applicant. We do appreciate the opportunity to try to address some of the issues that were brought up at the April public hearing. We had hoped to bring to you a new draft of the site plan, but we actually spoke with your counsel, and we were told that we could not submit a new drawing to you all. To that end, though, we would like to try to address the concerns of both the community as well as the staff. We do want to point out for the record, we have filed a reservation of rights statement, and we also want to point out that staff initially had sent letters to neighbors stating that this was a complete application, that it did address all of the requirements of the Unified Development Code. To that end, there have been some items pointed out, which is what these hearings are for, and so we appreciate the comments. What we would submit to the Planning Commission is we would ask that you do approve the preliminary plat, but the applicant is agreeable to the conditions that we are displaying on screen. Firstly, they are agreeable to a condition stating that the access shall be solely from Georgia State Route 9, no access on the 5 Acre Road. Probably the most important condition they're agreeable to, after speaking with staff, was they would be willing to remove 4 of the units from the preliminary plat. The 4 units that they are proposing are on the northeast corner of the property. You can see it, and I'll ask staff to display the preliminary plat if we can a little bit later, but it's the 4 units that are just south of the detention pond. Those are the only units that could be feasibly interpreted to have a front entry. Our position was that all of the homes faced toward the exterior. It did not run against the requirements of the Unified Development Code, that those were all rear entry townhomes. However, to clarify the matter, though, we're proposing to remove those units and that particular area would be used solely for a recreation area. That way, the 16 left all face either 5 Acre Road or they faced SR9. They're all rear loaded and comply with the Unified Development Code. There was a comment that was made about a discrepancy in some acreage that was labeled on, you had your total acreage that was labeled in the site data table, and then lots 5 and 6. It was about a 3,500 square foot discrepancy. It's certainly not a fatal discrepancy. It was just a typographical matter. So our client is agreeable to condition that just has to be corrected between now and the land disturbance permit process. And then with that, by removing 4 of the townhomes, there is room to build larger homes. So larger homes have larger values, and our client is agreeable to a condition that would state there would be minimum finished square footage of 2,300 square feet. That excludes garages, so the homes will actually be bigger than that. So with that, we think that we have addressed the concerns that were voiced by the community. Obviously, we've got a public hearing. We may hear more, but we do feel that we have addressed their concerns. We have addressed the concerns that were raised to staff, and our position is this matter does comply with the Unified Development Code, and with these conditions, I think we clarify any discrepancies or issues that were raised at the April hearing. With that, we are here to answer any questions, and we'll reserve any time that we have for rebuttal. Thank you.
We will now open the second public hearing. Are there any public comments?
We have several public comments. The first this evening is from Patrick Dodson.
As a reminder, please approach the podium when your name is called and identify yourself with your name, address, and/or organization.
This is so you can follow along. I was not aware that we could have any PowerPoint or anything, but this will track my presentation. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Patrick Dodson. I am with the law firm of Jacoma Robertson Dodrell in Atlanta, 950 East Paces Ferry Road, Suite 2450. I represent only Scott Hornsby and Jules Hornsby. When we were here back in April, I was tentatively representing a number of other homeowners, but through the process of discussion, the agreement was to represent Scott and Jules Hornsby. They are both citizens and residents of Milton, Georgia, who stand in opposition to the application of Epic Design and Build seeking a preliminary plat approval for the development at 265 5 Acre Road, 0 State Highway 9. Mr. and Ms. Hornsby live at 365 Acre Road, which is behind the site of the proposed development. And as you know, this development, at least it was my understanding coming here tonight that the proposal, the preliminary plat, the preliminary site plan that had been submitted to the city, although it has been revised, has not been revised since the last meeting in April. The plan that is before you for review, for analysis, for consideration, and either a recommendation of denial or approval with conditions is in fact a development of 20 units, which states that they have 3.792 acres. Now, I know that there was discussion on April 23rd about how the 5 Acre Road zone and how the Deerfield form-based code came about, but there was some analysis or some history that was not provided previously that I discovered through my research of the amendments of the code and the adoption of the Milton Unified Development Code. So we know that the city in 2014 adopted the North Vision Plan, which was the foundation for the Deerfield form-based code. Through a hotly contested mediation process involving the city and the residents of the 5 Acre Road area, they agreed on a plan that is now known as the 5 Acre Road Zone. And through that, the city adopted an ordinance specific, and it was called Deerfield Form-Based Code. This was in April of 2015. When this code was adopted, and this is very relevant for not only the Planning Commission, but also for the applicant and for the city, is that when the Deerfield Form-Based Code was adopted, if you'll look at Exhibit 1 on your handout that I gave you, it said that row houses and townhouses on Deerfield Highway 9 Form-Based Code shall only be permitted subject to the issuance of a use permit. You as planning commissioners know what a use permit is and what it entails to get a use permit. It's a special use permit. Many jurisdictions refer to it as a special use permit. It is in the nature of a zoning action, of a zoning ordinance. In addition, if you look at Exhibit 2, which is, now I will admit that these two sections have been repealed by the adoption of the UDC back in the summer of last year, but Exhibit 2, Section 1552 of the then ordinance had factors that the Planning Commission and the City Council had to consider when evaluating a use permit. In this case, would have been a use permit for townhomes. So they would have oversight, direct oversight of this type of a development. So whether the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan and economic development revitalization plans, compatibility with land uses and zoning districts in the vicinity of the property, The effect of the proposed use on traffic flow, vehicular and pedestrians, and adjoining streets, screening, ingress and egress to the property, just to name a few. Now, we know, everyone here now knows that in the summer of 2024, after multiple revisions of the Unified Development Code, the UDC was adopted on April 4th of 2024. However, in adopting this code, the city took away the requirement of a use permit for townhomes and said they were permitted as of right. But they did give the citizens an opportunity to have a public hearing. I don't know how that fell through the cracks. I believe it fell through the cracks based upon the history that I've come to know, that this use permit was part of the ordinance that was adopted to protect this area and to preserve the area as it was. And what we also know is the city has now amended the UDC to prohibit townhomes in this very zoning district, T4 permissive. This development will undoubtedly diminish the character of the existing low-density single-family residential developments that are in this area. It will degrade the property values. Equally important, you've heard these citizens here talk about the congestion, vehicular, and the safety issues concerning pedestrians on that roadway. Now, I want to speak to you about, and I understand that Mr. Underwood and the applicant is now here tonight proposing conditions of a preliminary plat approval process. Well, there is no provision in the UDC for conditions of approval of a preliminary plat. The preliminary plat either complies with every aspect of the UDC or it does not. And if it does not, it should be rejected in its entirety. The first issue is, in fact, the density. Mr. Underwood said that, yes, and I don't want to belabor the point, but whether it's a typographical issue or not, the plan that was submitted, the plan that is being considered by the Planning Commission and the city at this juncture says the property is 3.87 acres. It's not 3.87 acres. That is a mistake. Is it a typographical error? Whatever, but the property is 3.792 acres. So that yields only 37,920 square feet of heated space that can be utilized in this particular development. The plan as submitted, that is the current plan, I have confirmed there have been no site plan revisions. I advised the city attorney of the density issue over a month ago. It is my understanding through communications with the city planning department that and even confirmed by the applicant that they are aware that density was raised. We met with them. They said it was. We said, do you have a revised plan? They said, no, we don't. So on its face, it's non-compliant. They've had several months to get this in order. It's not in order. And the UDC provides that the plat must comply with every aspect of the UDC. Secondly, now I understand through the city's responses to our open records request, thank you for putting all that together. It was voluminous, but I understand that the city staff, as they are supposed to do and they are charged with doing, pointed out to the applicant that they needed warrants for certain things, setbacks, garages. In my review of what was sent back and forth, I'm not sure if the developer builder actually understood what was being requested of them. But in any event, the parking location standards require for T4 zoning that parking must be assessed by rear alleys or rear lanes when available or required. And that in T4, all parking lots and garages must be located on the second or third tier. So that speaks of location as to the property and the building structure. But there are no alleys in this proposal. It's one street with two hammerheads, one at the midpoint and one in the back. There's no alleys. So every townhouse in this development is a front-loaded front entry garage, which, as your zoning administrator stated, it's not permitted, period. And I would argue that you can't even get a warrant for it. I understand that warrants were requested for setback and second layer parking structures. However, regarding the warrants themselves, the UDC states that a warrant relating to a physical element or metric of the Deerfield form-based code must be based upon credible submitted evidence demonstrating, and this is in the code, approval would not offend the spirit or intent of the article, that there are extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property, that the literal or strict application of the article would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, topography, or other extraordinary or exceptional situations or conditions. And here's the key, not caused by the applicant. Number 3, relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And 4th is a catch-all with public safety, health, welfare are secured and substantial justice is done. I didn't include in my materials to you the correspondence between the city and the applicant. But in my opinion, the city's response to the applicant's response to the city's request to address these issues was woeful. It was threadbare. They were mere allegations that there's a hardship here. Everything's going to be great. We have satisfied the public good. There's no detriment to the public good. But I want to direct you to hardship. There is nothing extraordinary or exceptional about these two parcels of land on Highway 9. They are both in excess of 1.5 acres. They are both at least 300 feet wide and or 150 feet deep. They are otherwise conforming large estate size lots. They don't have any exceptional topography. They don't have any floodplain. The lots are otherwise buildable wherever you want to build them other than setback. So there's nothing exceptional. There's nothing extraordinary. The only thing extraordinary about this is that the very plat, the preliminary site plan, is creating the hardship. There's not room. They can't connect to 5 Acre Road, so they can't do a run through to connect there. They can't then do detached homes, which would be more in keeping with the area, but there is no hardship. There are no hardship. The only hardship is created by the applicant and the applicant's plan. That is not a basis to grant a warrant or a variance, not in the city of Milton, not in Fulton County, not in the city of Atlanta. Now, the issues or the factors regarding the spirit intent of the article, substantial detriment to the public good, health, safety, public welfare, those were not even really addressed at all by the applicant in the warrant communications. But third, another reason that we believe that the plat that has been submitted, the preliminary plat, fails is because, at least in my review of the documentation from city staff in response to our open records request, is that the applicants have not submitted evidence that they have obtained approval from Fulton County for the location of the sewer and water connections. Now, I will freely admit that I could be mistaken, but that documentation was just not in the materials that were provided to me. But I know that there was communication between city staff and the applicant that, at least even as of April 15th, staff did not have documentation of the Fulton County's approval of these locations. Fourth and finally, The UDC requires, and actually the checklist for a preliminary plat application in the city of Milton requires a tree canopy plan in accordance with the tree protection ordinance. It used to be under Chapter 60. It's now in the UDC. But for the Deerfield Form-Based Code, for T4, they have to provide 30% of the total area of the subject property as a minimum tree canopy. I admit that the applicant did file a tree inventory / tree survey, but in all the records provided to me, there is no tree canopy plan that provides for the protection of specific trees. And that is common in developments, but that, at least, and I will stand corrected if that's been provided, but it was in none of the almost 2,000 pages of documents that I received. But so here again, assuming that there's been admission that the density is off. There's been an admission, at least partially, that a warrant is due. And assuming all the four things that I have raised are accurate, the plan is not compliant on its face. The Planning Commission has one thing and one thing only to do tonight, is to recommend denial of the plat and of the application. And I would take one step further to say that the director then should deny the application. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll take any questions you have. Thank you.
The next speaker is Glenn Martin.
Hey, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Glenn Martin. I am a resident at 235 Hereford Road, part of the 5 Acre Road community, right down the street from the proposed development. I want to stand in opposition tonight of the proposed preliminary plat based on what Patrick just discussed, based on the same things we discussed at our last meeting. This proposal is not context sensitive to the existing Milton neighborhoods in that area. It doesn't match the reality of the people who live in that area. It does not match the vision of the city of Milton for that area. My opinion is that the application for the preliminary plat that's under review is not compliant with the UDC. It misses the mark, as Patrick just said. The applicant has had the opportunity to revise. They have not revised. They've talked tonight about potential revisions, ways that they could revise it, ways that they could fix it. That's not what's under consideration tonight. They've submitted an application. I respectfully request that the recommendation be to deny that application, and they have an opportunity to go back to the drawing board, put something else together, reapply. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Lou Swanson. All
This
right.
is in opposition, you can say.
The next speaker is George Smith. Okay. The next speaker is.
He's
Isaac.
coming, Diana.
Oh, I'm
George
sorry.
Smith?
Sorry.
My name is George Smith. I live at 320 Ponytail Road, which is within the 5 Acre subdivision. I said to you last time, I'm the newbie. I've only been here for 5 years. I moved into that subdivision because of the quietness, away from everything, but close to shopping. And it's my opinion that if you allow this to go through, it's going to devalue my property. And because of the congestion that's going to be from all the traffic, somebody's going to get hurt, especially with 9 now being reconstructed and an island going in there, and you got to make right-hand turns to turn around and so forth to get in and out of that 5-acre road. And that doesn't even take into consideration all the Amazon trucks, Federal Express trucks, UPS trucks, and all the other people that are going to be serving that. Somebody's going to get hurt. That's all I have to say.
Next speaker is Isaiah Yancey.
Good evening. My name is Isaiah Ike Yancey. I've lived in Milton for 21 years. My address is 13274 Marywood Drive, which is in the Regency at Windward Square subdivision on Highway 9, just across from Coles, and about a mile or so away from this proposed development. I've been the president of the Homeowners Association for most of the time that I've lived there. I'm here to oppose this development at 5-Acre Road by Epic Design and Build. This request should be denied. I'm here tonight to support my neighbors who seem to be near 100% opposed to this development. Since 2018, I've been the leader of the coalition against GDOT havoc. We are fighting the destruction of acres of mature landscaping, mature trees, and berms at subdivisions along Highway 9 that the widening of Highway 9 was going to cause. We had a deal with GDOT, but they reneged on it. So late last year, I cranked the coalition back up again. This time, I got State Representative and Speaker Pro Tem Jan Jones involved. Ms. Jones organized meetings between GDOT and City of Milton that resulted in the management of the widening of Highway 9 being taken over by the City of Milton. In the meantime, City of Milton has created the Deerfield vision, created zoning, et cetera, with the plan to have, as they describe it, a Milton-esque area along Highway 9. The plans for widening of Highway 9 are probably 2 or 3 years away from a final plan. This will directly affect the area on this parcel that can actually be developed, and nobody knows what the final parcel will look like. The Deerfield vision is not final either. Everything was supposed to be on hold until this was in final form. Why is this parcel even being considered for development at this time? This development has a lot of strikes against it. It is a very dense development. It is being built on Highway 9, and nobody knows what is going to happen with the planning of the widening. It totally violates the Deerfield vision. Either the City of Milton is serious about the Deerfield vision or they aren't. If they are serious about it, there is zero reason to approve this development. It appears to be an end run around coming widening and pending zoning changes, which means the developers would just cram the townhomes onto a smaller area. It is just a very bad idea all the way around. Thanks for your consideration.
The next speaker is Laura Wysong.
Laura Wysong, 14305 Creek Club Drive in Crooked Creek. I lived in Crooked Creek for almost 29 years. I've been a longtime resident, and I appreciate speaking to the commissioners. I'm here for several reasons. Obviously, I'm a resident of Crooked Creek. I care about the property that's next to us. I also care about our neighbors in 5 acres. We know a lot of people in 5 acres. It's a great community. So I'm very opposed to this for a number of reasons, of which I've had several conversations with people in our community as well as theirs. And I am truly concerned about the sewer line connection. That's problematic. That will cost. There's cost there to the developer around a study. We don't even know if it can be done. That has to be gone through Fulton County. We have to understand whether there's even a capability to do it. So that's a process in itself. We don't really have any answers there. Also, as the previous gentleman mentioned, the GDOT design with City of Milton, we have a lot of unknowns left 2 to 3 years down the road. Putting a street right after Crooked Creek with the traffic situation, and Crooked Creek would love to have a light there. We have no light. The backup situation in and out of the community will be tenable. It will be horrible. It will also be horrible for the folks who live in 5 acres as well. So that is hugely problematic. If you start looking at the way they've got it set up, I just don't see how that's going to work. I had conversations also, if you look at parking, as the attorney mentioned, you've got no place for guests to park. Where are they going to go? There is no place. You also have the square footage does not match the surrounding area. I mean, you're going to put 1,500 square foot homes in 3,000 to 4,000 square feet plus communities right next door. That absolutely makes no sense. So some conversations I had with a commercial developer here in Milton, we were throwing some ideas out. I threw some ideas out to folks in the community. I mean, I think what people want is they want, 4 to 6 really nice homes, 1 small road, view shed on the front, view shed on the side, view shed on the back, which is things that the design review board usually looks at. The other thing is, what are the standards for construction? To meet our construction standards, it's going to cost money. And do they really have the cash to do it? I have a huge question around it. And there's probably going to be changes to that, asked and requested. That costs more money. So there's just a lot of unknowns with this. I recommend that you say no. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
We have 4 public comment cards which note that these people are in opposition, but they do not wish to speak. And so for the record, they are Mike and Jennifer Natchez, Kylie Green, Julie Ann Hornsby, and Alex Memendust.
He's in support.
I beg your pardon. That one is in support of the application. Those are the only public comment cards that we have.
Great. Does the applicant wish to present a rebuttal or closing statement?
Just to clarify, and I guess complete our presentation, I will state again, my name is Ethan Underwood. My address is 202 Triple Gap Road in Cumming, Suite 200. Didn't state my address at the first. I do want to clarify that there is no objection from staff to the proposed use. Now, maybe everybody doesn't care for townhomes. I've heard that. We get that. But it is undisputed that at the time this application was filed, townhomes are a lawful use allowed as of right in the T4 permissive transit zone. So while we understand people's very, very strong opinions as to whether they're appropriate, the version of the code we're traveling under, this is an allowed use as of right. Now, my friend Mr. Dobson did an excellent job of presenting why my client does not qualify for a warrant. But here's the thing, we don't want one, we don't need one. The townhomes are all, by the version of the code in effect, has to be accessed either by a rear alley or a rear lane. What's on the preliminary plat shows a rear lane. There was some discrepancy and I think some discussion amongst staff as to those 4 lots that are on the northeastern corner of the property. And we're saying, let's take them off the table. That way, there's absolutely no question that these are all accessed by a rear lane. So again, a warrant is not needed. A warrant is not requested. And this does comply with the Unified Development Code. Now, there was questions to say, well, can you not submit an updated plat? Our client is certainly willing to do that. But there were other questions as well. Have you satisfied the sewer? And have you satisfied the trees? The answer is that has all been looked at, but this is a preliminary plat. This is preliminary to that. That's going to be engineered during the land disturbance permit process. So staff has determined that this meets the requirements of the code. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. If staff had looked at it and said, you're missing elements A, B, C, they would have stopped it and we wouldn't even be able to hear it. So we've met the minimum requirements. We are here, we meet the requirements of the code. I don't know that we can satisfy all the desires of the neighbors, frankly. I hear they want detached homes. They don't want the use there. Respectfully, we can't agree to that. I would also point out to the public, I know you all are very familiar with this. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission. You cannot enforce conditions, but you can recommend conditions. We are here trying to say, or my client is here trying to say, they want to work with you all. So they are going on the record consenting to the additions that were presented, or the conditions that were presented, saying that there would be no access on the 5-acre road, that they will commit to removing those 4 disputed townhomes, that they would agree to commit to correct just a typographical error that does not thwart the preliminary plat. That small discrepancy in square footage, it's listed elsewhere on the same plan. There's a little bit of discrepancy of some labeling, but we know what the square footage is. It's been certified by a surveyor and by an engineer who submitted that to the city, and that will be corrected. Again, it's not fatal, especially with the removal of the 4 lots. The density comes way down, so there's no question of it blowing the density cap. And then last but not least, though not required, our client is agreeable to a minimum square footage of 2,300 square feet of finished square footage to create more expensive townhomes. We understand this is not what some folks who live in larger lots may want, but it's what's allowed by right under the code, and that's what my client's requesting. With that, we're happy to answer any questions that you have, and we appreciate your consideration. Ask that this be approved. Thank you. Oh, if I may, one last comment. If the Planning Commission somehow feels that the preliminary plat doesn't satisfy the UDC, the appropriate thing is to send it back to staff. It's not to deny it. It's to say, staff, you missed something. Go back and look at it again. We'll work with staff if that's what you feel is necessary, but we would submit to you, if the only thing is that's at issue is a discrepancy of some labels on the preliminary plat, that can absolutely be remedied at the land disturbance permit process. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the commissioners, for staff, or the applicant?
Yes, somebody brought up the tree canopy. Was the tree canopy, was that required to be submitted, and was that submitted with the application?
So the arborist, we have all of our different departments review the application or submittal, and she was satisfied with it. So.
Okay.
Where was the square footage made?
Where and when was the square footage mistake made? How did that come about?
Who are you asking?
I don't know who to ask. Yeah, Mr. Dodson.
I'm the one that found it.
Okay.
Respectfully, the preliminary plat that was submitted and the initial plat, as Mr. Underwood pointed out, there was some issue on the back series of townhomes. The garages were rear and side entry, and the staff correctly pointed out that that was prohibited. And then the site plan was adjusted, and so we're now under this 20 unit. But in the survey documents themselves, the actual site plan, if you will refer to the image 2 in the exhibits that I gave you, in the project data box of the survey, and this is what the surveyors do, the engineers, it said the project area was 168,710 square feet at 3.87 acres. And then image 3 gives the total heated area of the proposed townhomes that would be included in the heated square footage calculation based on the definitions. And that amount was 38,615. I just looked at the parcel data for each parcel there were arrows drawn, and that is image 4. Lot 6 is 1.914 acres. with a total square footage of 83372.39. And then lot 5, the lot which is technically on 5 acre, was 1.878 acres for a total of 3.792 acres, which gives a maximum floor area per the Deerfield Code of 37,920 square feet. It's just on the plat. And if you look at just the box data and you're not rechecking or you're not looking, you assume, in defense, you assume it's correct. But I didn't, and it was incorrect. And so the plat that had been corrected, it was an initial preliminary plat. It's a corrected plat that we're now looking at. It was overly dense by 600 or 700 square feet, but that's not been adjusted. And so when I found that out, I checked my numbers. I checked them twice, 3 times, 4 times, and determined that the density calculation was off. I informed the city in May that of this error. And I would, in conclusion, just because of one thing that Mr. Underwood had said, that the proper thing would be to give them time to correct it. Well, actually, that's not entirely true, because the UDC expressly states that during the preliminary plat approval process, that if the director determines that previously identified deficiencies remain in any corrected preliminary plat, staff may reject the application entirely. That is where we are. Your zoning manager has stated tonight not only the density calculation, but also the requirement or this development is actually prohibited and can't even be considered now because of the moratorium that was in effect. Thank you.
If I may, since we're letting the other side speak so much, I will point out the code says staff may reject the preliminary plat, not the planning commission. Staff did not reject the preliminary plat. They sent it to you all. So we're here. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing.
What I feel, Judy, is that we're looking at maybe these changes need to be done, or they're going to be done. Maybe it comes back, it's right, it's wrong. That, to me, we're looking at a planning meeting where we make judgments on all of these changes. This is not a preliminary plan.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I guess, yeah, I think a couple thoughts and then maybe a motion. Yeah, I think Fred's right. We have to look at what's in front of us right now, what's on the preliminary plat that's in front of us right now. And the fact that there was an error made on the acreage. And the fact too, that now I understand that it requires a warrant based upon the moratorium that mayor and city council put in place in February, which was prior to the submittal, I believe. And that the only projects that were permitted to be processed by the community development department, if they were only allowed by right with no other questions and no other concerns, but this one required a warrant. Therefore, I move that the planning commission recommend to the director of community development that this plat be denied. Now, should this go through a recommendation, I would have the applicant submit a new application, with the new preliminary plat, so that we can have a look at that one and make a decision based upon what's really going to happen.
Yep. So just to restate, your motion is a recommendation to deny.
To deny, yes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Nolte and seconded by Commissioner Edwards to recommend denial of the preliminary plat. Any further discussion? All those in favor of a denial?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. I would say that if the applicant desires, they can submit a new application, recognizing that it would need to be compliant with code, including those updates that were made and approved by City Council and Mayor on May 19th, 2025.
Just to be clear, it's a recommendation of denial that comes after, that may or may not be the director's decision eventually.
Yeah, we recommend. Okay.
Community Development Director, yeah.
There are no new business and no old business items. We'll wait for Mr. Shaw to return because I think he wants to make a motion.
Bill's left out.
Justify his appearance.
I'll let somebody else make a motion.
We'll let you make a motion to adjourn.
No new business, no old business?
No new business, no old
Oh,
business.
well, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Shaw and a second by Commissioner James to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned.